guys, Marvel Fan 45 here, and today we're going to be reviewing the 2019 film Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It was directed by Celine Sciamma, or I think that's how you pronounce her name, and has three actresses' names I can't pronounce because they're all French names. But yeah, this film's basically about a painter coming to paint a girl who doesn't want to be painted. And yeah, that's really it to the plot, and I absolutely love this movie. The first night I saw it, it cracked my top 5 favorite films, but I wasn't sure if it should really be up there, because it had to have held up after a rewatch. Like, for example, Parasite used to be in my favorite films, but like, it's a great film and all, but you can't watch it again. Like, I tried to watch it again and it just didn't work for me at all. Like, it's a great movie, it deserved the Best Picture win, but like, doesn't hold up after a rewatch for me. This movie did. It actually went up after a rewatch. It used to be like my 5th favorite film, now it's my 4th favorite film of all time. And so I watched it again last night just to make sure and prepare for the review a bit more. And yeah, it's pretty definitively there. And so, yeah, let's actually get talking about it. So, the direction in this movie, I feel like we have to cover this first, is immaculate. Every single shot in this movie could be a painting. Like, there's shots where literally characters are just cutting food that are amazing. And there's one specific shot in a field where they're trying to pick flowers, which is a great shot as well. And then a lot of the shots are used very, very, very metaphorically. Like, because this movie doesn't spoon feed you everything. Like, to give you an example, that's my issue with the Scorsese movies. Like, another controversial opinion, I don't really like the Scorsese movies, but this movie doesn't, it tells you just enough, but at the same time it doesn't use a lot of dialogue. So like, there are scenes where characters are just looking at each other and you just have to assume. And then like, there's small details like that really give away things about a character. Like, the girl she's coming to paint, the mom says, okay, you have to be your walking companion, and then they go out for a walk and she runs. And so that's a pretty big metaphor right there. But like, this movie is well directed. I don't know how we went off on that tangent, but every shot, it's shot to perfection. I'm really glad I watched it on the big screen. If you don't watch it on a big screen, it won't have near the same effect. The fact that she stays on the last shot for like 2 minutes just to let it set in what's really happening. Like, because the last shot of this film, I was literally shouting at the TV the first time. I'm not gonna say what, but like shouting at the TV. And because it's such a sad last shot, like, this film doesn't end happily. And that's another reason I absolutely love it. Like, that's one of the reasons in my top 5, it's in my top 5 favorite films. It's not afraid to go there. And the last shot. The last shot has stuck with me for the last couple of days, not just because I've rewatched it 3 times, but yeah, I love the direction. I could go on about the direction for a long time, but I'll just move on to the acting. The acting is also amazing because the characters portray it more through their expressions than their actual, basically, talking, basically. Here's, if you pay attention to the expressions, you can tell what a character's feeling through the entire movie. Like the maid, which the maid has a great sad character arc, but the maid, you can tell what she's feeling like just by looking at her throughout the whole movie. And she doesn't really, she's not even that important of, well, she's important. Like, all three of the characters that are in the house are important because the painter has to stay over at the house so she can try and paint the girl. And it's also got a pretty, it's not as big a commentary on art as it is on, like, basically feminism. And, like, I loved the way this movie portrayed feminism because it did it in such a subtle way. Like, all these, it's not even small details. Like, if you pay attention for a second, like, the metaphors are pretty obvious. Like how at the beginning of the movie, the two girls who fall in love, the fire when she's sitting by it in the first shot, which is an amazing shot, it's a smaller fire, but then as the movie goes on, the fire gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to the bonfire scene, and then you know what that scene leads to. And that's actually a really genius use of, like, a small detail. Like, whenever the fire sparks, something's happening. Like, something's important is happening. Like, the fire is a super subtle detail, and I love that she used it in the way that she did. And then, oh, there's just a lot to talk about. But yeah, all three of the actresses portray their roles perfectly. Like, especially the maid. That's a sad arc. And then the two girls who fall in love portray their characters perfectly. I mean, especially in the last shot. Again, the last shot will stick with you. But yeah, the acting's amazing. But on a symbolism and metaphorical level, I dug it. Like, that's one of the best. That's some of the best symbolism in a little while. Because, like, it's not trying to be, like, well, it's not obvious. It's not like Only God Forgives not obvious, where it literally tells you basically Only God Forgives only has like 4 lines of dialogue. But this movie, there could be 2 big metaphors in it. There's a metaphor for feminism, and then a metaphor for relationships in there. There, you can interpret it a couple different ways, and that's why I liked it. Because when I watched it the second time, I interpreted it as more of a relationship story. But then when I watched it the third time, I thought it was more. It's probably both, honestly, because I don't want to spoil anything, but like the way the story moves along, it's more about the feminism, basically. Like, the movie's about feminism. It's a feminist film. And it portrays it subtly, like I said before. But, like, if you pay attention to all the specific characters, like, the mother has a very specific role in it when you look at it. Let's see, the maid has a very specific role. All the characters have specific roles they need to fit in it. And then the house is obviously like the society they're contained to. And that's why when they go outside, they're allowed to basically kiss. Like, it's a really interesting look into feminism. Like, love this film. 4th favorite film of all time. But yeah, fourth favorite film of all time. If that doesn't convince you to watch it, I do not know what will. But it's slow, it's artsy, it's shot well. It has everything I love about film in it. Like, this is cinema for me. Like, I had such a great experience with this movie. I haven't had an experience quite like it besides Only God Forgives, where I was up at 1 a.m. and I was just completely blown away by everything. But yeah, fourth favorite film of all time, and I would highly recommend watching it. And here is my controversial opinion. I prefer this over Parasite. I think I already said it at the beginning of the review, but Parasite's a great film, but this film you can rewatch. It's got so many metaphors, and they're both coming out on the Criterion Collection. Now, Parasite is beautiful, has metaphors and all that too. I just like the way this movie went about it better. Like, because Parasite is shot well, acted well, directed well. I just can't watch it a second time. That's my only big issue with it. But yeah, if you want to know why I know it's exactly my fourth favorite film, stick around. But for now, just check out Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And now I guess I'll semi-explain how I get my favorite films of all time. So basically, let's get an example here. So my favorite films of all time, number 1 is Nymphomaniacs Volume 1 and 2. Number 2 is Dracula 1992. Number 3 is Climax. And number 4 is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Now, these are all my favorite films of all time. Now, the only reason it's those specific 4, not a 5 or something, is because I can't say, like, Terminator 2 couldn't be replaced with, like, Fight Club. Like, these are the only 4 I can say definitively will most likely never be replaced. And yeah, that's how I judge it. Like, off those 4 films. Like, for example, I watched The Devil's Rejects yesterday. 5-star movie, fixed all the problems with House of a Thousand. But like, it's not up to the standard that I really love my movies. Like, those are my 4 favorite films. That's it. Sorry for the tangent. Hope you enjoyed the review, and stay safe, stay quarantined, and have a good day.